I want to start with something almost everyone has experienced, but very few people talk about honestly. Someone says something simple, a short message, a small comment, a different tone than usual, and suddenly, your brain starts analyzing it. Why did they say it like that? Are they upset? Did I do something wrong? Was that passive aggressive? So you replay the conversation again and again, trying to figure out what they really meant, even when part of you knows you might be overthinking it. So the question becomes, why do some people overanalyze other people's tones so much? Let's break it down. The first reason is emotional uncertainty. Tone carries emotional information, and human brains are naturally sensitive to emotional shifts, because for most of human history, understanding people's emotions was connected to safety, anger, rejection, distance, disapproval. Your brain learned to notice those signals very carefully, especially social ones. The second reason is past emotional unpredictability. Some people grew up around environments where emotional reactions changed constantly. Mood shifts, criticism, silence, passive aggression, emotional tension, which taught the nervous system something important very early. Pay close attention to tone, because tone often mattered more than words. And once your nervous system learns that, it stays emotionally alert afterward, even years later. The third reason is fear of rejection. Humans are deeply wired for connection, so when someone's tone suddenly feels different, your brain automatically searches for danger. Did something change? Are they pulling away? Did I mess something up? Because your nervous system wants reassurance before uncertainty turns into rejection. The fourth reason is emotional sensitivity. Some people naturally notice emotional nuance more deeply than others. Tiny pauses, changes in wording, different energy, a shorter reply, things most people barely notice can feel emotionally significant to highly sensitive nervous systems, which means your brain processes interactions with much greater intensity. The fifth reason is overthinking. Some people don't simply experience conversations, they mentally replay them afterward, analyzing details repeatedly, trying to decode hidden meaning, searching for emotional certainty, and the more attention your brain gives to tiny details, the more emotionally important those details begin to feel. The sixth reason is self-protection. Your brain believes overanalyzing tone might protect you emotionally. If I notice the problem early, maybe I can avoid conflict. Maybe I can stop rejection before it happens. So, your nervous system becomes hyper-aware of emotional shifts, not because it wants to hurt you, but because it's trying to protect you from emotional pain. The seventh reason is attachment anxiety. The more emotionally important someone feels, the more power their tone carries. A neutral message from a stranger rarely affects you deeply, but a small tone shift from someone you care about, that can change your entire emotional state, because now, the interaction feels emotionally high stakes. The eighth reason is digital communication. Texting makes tone much harder to interpret. No facial expressions, no body language, no voice, just words, which means your brain starts filling in the emotional gaps automatically. And anxious minds usually fill uncertainty with negative interpretations first, not because those interpretations are accurate, but because your nervous system prefers certainty over ambiguity. The ninth reason is emotional hypervigilance. Some people became emotionally observant as a survival mechanism. They learned to scan for emotional changes constantly. Who seems irritated? Who feels distant? Who sounds different? Because noticing emotional shifts early once helped them stay emotionally safe. And eventually, that emotional scanning becomes automatic, even in healthy relationships. Now here's where it gets important. Overanalyzing tone doesn't automatically mean your perceptions are wrong. Sometimes tone genuinely changes. Sometimes people really are upset. But the problem begins when your nervous system treats every small emotional uncertainty like danger, because then conversations stop feeling natural and start feeling like emotional investigations. But here's the truth most people never realize. Most people are not communicating with perfect emotional consistency all the time. People get tired, distracted, overwhelmed, stressed, and many tone changes have nothing to do with you personally. But anxious nervous systems often personalize emotional ambiguity automatically, especially if connection feels emotionally important. And once you understand that, something begins changing. You stop assuming every small tone shift means rejection. You stop replaying every interaction, endlessly searching for certainty, and you begin recognizing something important. Your nervous system is reacting not only to the conversation itself, but to uncertainty, and uncertainty becomes much easier to handle once you stop treating it like emotional danger. Because emotional peace doesn't come from perfectly decoding every person around you. It comes from learning that you can survive emotional uncertainty without immediately spiraling into fear. And once your nervous system slowly learns that, conversations begin feeling lighter again, less threatening, less exhausting, less emotionally consuming. Because now, you no longer feel responsible for decoding every tiny emotional shift perfectly. And maybe that's the real shift. Not becoming someone who never notices tone, but becoming someone who no longer believes every change in tone is a warning sign. Because sometimes, a message is just a message. A short reply is just a short reply. And silence is not always rejection. Sometimes people are simply human. And once your nervous system fully understands that, communication stops feeling like emotional survival and starts feeling natural again. And once you begin realizing that, you notice something else too. A lot of the anxiety around people's tone doesn't actually come from the words themselves. It comes from what your brain believes the tone might mean. Distance, rejection, disappointment, anger. Because emotionally aware nervous systems rarely hear communication passively. They analyze it emotionally. The pause before a reply, the energy in a sentence, the change in wording. And over time, your brain starts treating emotional ambiguity like something dangerous that must be solved immediately. But here's the problem. The more you analyze someone's tone, the less naturally you experience the conversation itself. Because now, you're no longer simply connecting with the person. You're monitoring them, trying to predict them, trying to emotionally prepare for every possible outcome, and eventually, that becomes exhausting. Not because communication is supposed to hurt, but because your nervous system never fully relaxes inside it. And maybe that's the real shift. Not learning to ignore tone completely, but learning that not every emotional uncertainty requires panic. Because sometimes people are tired, distracted, quiet, overwhelmed, and not every small change in energy is secretly about you. Once your nervous system truly understands that, conversations stop feeling like emotional danger and start feeling human again.